Inside ISIS social media strategy, we're showing you just how they're recruiting Western boys and girls. Then a voice from Ukraine, not a politician or a professional journalist. One of our very own iReporters tells us how the crisis has changed life for everyone. And in our tech section, an app that helps the blind see. I'm Samuel Burke at CNN's London studios. This is the show where social media, tech, and TV news meet. iReport starts right now. Welcome to the program. ISIS has a social media strategy that even a Western corporation would be envious of. That's how one counterterrorism expert has described their command of social networking. And few people follow ISIS as closely as author Michael Weiss. I just spoke to him to find out if young Muslims are seeking out ISIS online or if it's the terrorist group seeking out Islamic youth.
Well, I think it's a little of both. People who are drawn to the ISIS ideology or just like what they see in terms of ISIS's propaganda and what they're accomplishing, if I can use that word, in Syria and Iraq. There are innumerable ways and networks on social media that you can go to. You can link up with them on Facebook, or that was true up until recently. I think it still is. They have shadow forums and ways that they can cloak their behavior and their message. Russian social media platforms, in fact, are quite prominent. VKontakte, which is the Russian answer to Facebook. After a lot of these ISIS guys and their accounts, we're talking walls and news feeds, were taken off of Facebook. A lot of them were paired to VKontakte. Remember, there's a huge Russian, particularly Chechen, Dagestani, Caucasian contingent to ISIS, so they have the Russian language. And then there are those who actually do belong to ISIS, who use Twitter, and they have a series of accounts that they refer to. And then in their instruction manuals, the things they disseminate to prospective mujahideen, they say, follow these accounts, and then if these accounts get taken offline, follow this subsequent series of accounts. So essentially, with a website like Twitter or a platform like Twitter, you're playing whack-a-mole. You pull the plug on one, and then 10 more pop up.
So is the answer that these social media companies need to have more employees? We've heard from a Twitter official in a testimony here in the UK that they have about 100 people or more around the clock. Do they just need more people to try and win that game of whack-a-mole then?
I think it's about dedicating more resources. Although look, I'll be very honest. I think the social media aspect of this is slightly overblown. If you are committed to finding out how to get in touch with ISIS, I co-wrote a book on this, and we were able to interview dozens of people within the organization, from rank-and-file soldier to clerics to affiliates and fellow travelers. It's not that hard. You can use Skype if you know the account names. You can connect with them that way. You can use HipChat, which is a more encrypted and protected chatting platform. I've seen WhatsApp is prominent. However you go after ISIS's messaging or their means of communication, they've already adapted.
But could a counter-narrative from moderate Muslims maybe not save the people who've already gone, but possibly create another option for young Muslims in the West and other countries looking on social media, do you think?
A lot of this, unfortunately, has to do with the geopolitics in the region right now. Muslims, particularly Sunni Muslims, see themselves beleaguered and besieged and under threat, across not just two countries, but throughout the entire region. And as long as that persists, I think you're going to see people who are just drawn to ISIS, not because necessarily they agree with the Salafi jihadi ideology, but they see them as a safeguard or some kind of guarantor on their security. And that's the narrative that ISIS is tapping into.
Michael Weiss, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your expertise from New York.
Sure.
Now we turn our attention to Ukraine, where a little more than a year ago, a deadly day of anti-government protests erupted in Kiev's Independence Square. iReporter Alex Klaymanov witnessed that violence unfold, and on the anniversary, he returned to see those tributes to those who died. We invited Alex to the program, and I asked him about the photos he posted to iReport.com of the memorials.
The ceremony was very moving, but also the light installation that was created especially for it was also quite spectacular. there were 100 beams of light installed right at the spots where people were killed, and they were shedding light right into the low clouds above Independence Square. There were thousands of people there who gathered to commemorate their memory of those victims.
This crisis has been going on for quite a long time now. As an everyday Ukrainian, what is your everyday life like? How have things changed? And what is it at this point in this crisis?
I live in Kiev, and amazingly, if you live in Kiev, on the surface, you don't really notice much of the wartime effects, so to say, except maybe for the economic side.
And what do you predict for you, for your future? Do you think that you'll stay in Kiev, or do you think that you might be forced to emigrate, to go to a different country and see it out from there?
Well, amazingly, even though these times are very difficult for Ukraine and Ukrainians, it is also a very interesting time to live here because you see the country in the middle of change and you can contribute to that change. If I have a chance to go somewhere, if I get a job in another country, I would think twice, is it really worth it? Because here I can do something really important, something substantial, as many of my colleagues, my friends, many of my friends have become involved in the situation, like doing volunteer work or suddenly becoming reporters, being able to report in English or other languages and travel around Ukraine and tell people around the world about what really is going on in Ukraine.
It's amazing how people find peace in times of crisis. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Samuel.
Alex Kremenov, one of our regular iReporters for us there via Skype in Kiev, Ukraine. Coming up, it's the tech section of our show, and we're looking at an app that helps the blind see. Plus, you've heard of 3D printing. Now try doing it with a pen. Welcome back to iReport. I'm Samuel Burke at CNN's London studios. It's the tech section of our show now, and a brand new app is changing the lives of the blind.
Please identify some of the items in this vending machine.
I see chips.
Nefertiti Matos is blind, and she's using Be My Eyes, a free iPhone app that connects her to sighted volunteers via a video call.
The first time I used it was here in the office. I just went to this vending machine that has no braille symbols, no tactile anything. And with Be My Eyes, I was able to identify there's a lot of junk food in there, but knowing that I now could go up there and purchase something, it's very freeing.
When you're not using the app, when you have to ask somebody out in the street, is that something that's tiresome for the visually impaired?
It can be, and it also makes me personally feel like it leaves this impression of dependency. And so I feel like technology of this kind really furthers us along in giving the proper impression, which is that we can do anything really with the right tools and training. Bye-bye.
Be My Eyes can empower the blind users as well as volunteers like Melissa Gould. The first time that you got a blind person calling, what was that moment like?
It was sort of surreal. I just answered the call, and it was a woman holding her phone at her problem, which was on the floor. She had dropped her necklace, and I just kept saying, okay, go a little right, go down lower, and then I could see her hand and she took it. And it was a little beautiful moment. I felt happy that I could help someone. What I really feel about this app is that it's a good deed waiting to happen.
Open Be My Eyes.
Blind users say the only change the app really needs is more sighted volunteers.
I've been known to wait up to about 5-6 minutes, and by that time I'm just like, okay, is there a sighted person around? Could you please tell me what train station this is?
23 Street Station.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
If you want to volunteer, all you have to do is download the Be My Eyes app in iTunes, and the creators tell me they're working on a version for Android. Well, 3D printers have already created jewelry, music instruments, and even printed cars. Now you can even doodle 3D printing to life.
The 3Doodler was the world's first 3D printing pen. It literally allows you to draw in the air. It kind of got invented by accident, when our 3D printer made a mistake that missed a layer in its print process. And my partner turned to me and said, "That's really annoying. I wish you could just take the nozzle off of the 3D printer and fill in that missing space." And we both kind of smacked our heads and said, "Oh my God, you can do that." We launched on Kickstarter in February 2012. We were trying to raise $30,000. We ended up raising $2.3 million. We never envisioned the applications that have come to life. People have done things like make dresses, they've made shirts. After we launched the Kickstarter, we were contacted by the visually impaired community. They wanted to use the 3Doodler for writing Braille. We told them that we didn't think it was possible and that they were probably not going to like the results. They immediately picked up the pen and showed us that we were wrong. Not only are they using it for writing Braille, they're using it for raised line graphing, so for math classes, and they're using it to write standard letters, since they can feel the letters on the paper. We just launched our new version of the 3Doodler 2.0. It's significantly improved. We reduced the size by over 75%. It's truly now something that anyone can pick up and start to use.
That was one of the cooler inventions that we saw at the Consumer Electronics Show this year. That's it for this edition of iReport. Before we leave, we want to show you one of the most popular stories on iReport.com in the past weeks, images from Chinese New Year from all across the globe, ushering in the year of the sheep, or the goat, depending on who you ask. Well, if you see news happening where you are, just head over to iReport.com and submit your photos and videos there, and we might just see you on the next edition of this show. I'm Samuel Burke at CNN London. I'll see you on Twitter @SamuelCNN. Until the next show.